All aspiring teachers should probably read this book and others like it. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Read the Right Thing Book Reviews. I'm Eric. Thanks so much for watching. Frank McCourt was an Irish author and teacher. He's well known for his memoir, Angela's Ashes, about his impoverished childhood growing up in cold, rainy Ireland. He also wrote a book called Tis, which is about his life after he immigrated to New York City. Teacher Man is Frank McCourt's third book and covers his 30-year teaching career in New York City high schools and colleges. In this book, McCourt discusses his teaching career, and he also gives stories about his childhood. His teaching style was very funny and different. He had a very humorous teaching style. He would tell stories, and it's very different than other styles. He often reverted to telling stories about his life and mostly his childhood about growing up in Ireland. And as a writing exercise, he had his students write restaurant reviews and recipes. His style is counterintuitive and unorthodox, especially when compared to the old school strict and order style or the new school teach to the test. It's a different style. I think it's a style that students enjoy, but administrators have a hard time believing that is effective in teaching students. One thing about teaching is that you always have an audience, although that audience isn't always a captive one. Part of the job of teaching is being able to capture the attention of young children and teenagers, and also hold their attention. Some teachers can and some teachers can't. Frank McCourt had an audience to hone his own storytelling, which probably helped him become a better writer. It doesn't hurt having an interesting accent and stories that most Americans wouldn't believe. The highlights of this book for me are the stories from the classroom and his personal relationships with helping the students. There's some hilarious interactions that McCourt had with his students, including eating the sandwich of one student on the very first day of school. It's amazing what sort of wacky things can occur in high school classrooms. If a novelist or fiction writer were to write some of these stories, the editor would probably come back and say, all right, reel it in, let's be a little more truthful. The book reminded me of my own short experience teaching English in Newark, New Jersey, especially the parts where McCourt had to convince the administration that he was somehow worthy of this job. High schools, for as much as they've changed, are still very similar to when McCourt was teaching. There are teachers trying to do a job and a bunch of unruly teens testing the limits, testing what they can get away with. And there's always administrators, and most teachers would agree that administrators are a pretty big pain in the ass to teachers. There's usually a rivalry between teachers and administrators. Each one thinks they could do the other's job better than they are doing it. Billy Collins, the poet, said of this book, moving out of the poor Irish lanes of his childhood and now into the high school classrooms of New York City, Frank McCourt exchanges one garden of suffering for another, but always with a comic eye, a sympathetic heart, and the perfect timing of a master storyteller. Teacher Man is a cry from the barricades of public education and should be required reading, not just for all teachers, but for anyone who ever set foot in a high school. Happily, there will be no test. Most of the stories from McCourt's childhood that were rehashed in this book were already told in a more emotional way in Angela's Ashes. So if you are interested in Frank McCourt's story, I recommend you read Angela's Ashes. But if you're interested in his teaching career and you ever wondered what it's like facing 30 students in a New York City classroom, then you should read this book. Here is the very first page. Here they come, and I'm not ready. How could I be? I'm a new teacher and learning on the job. On the first day of my teaching career, I was almost fired for eating the sandwich of a high school boy. On the second day, I was almost fired for mentioning the possibility of friendship with a sheep. Otherwise, there was nothing remarkable about my 30 years in the high school classrooms of New York City. I often doubted if I should be there at all. At the end, I wondered how I lasted that long. McCourt's style of humor, lyricism, and self-deprecation is charming and really fun to read. So yeah, there it is. Short, quick review. But that was my review of Frank McCourt's Teacher Man. If you've read this book, let me know what you thought about it in the comments. All aspiring teachers should probably read this book and others like it. It made me think of a few books I actually read in college. One was by the actor Tony Danza, who spent, I believe, a semester teaching in a Philadelphia public school. And that reminded me a lot of this book. If you found this video helpful, please let me know in the comments. Or if you know someone who would enjoy this video, please send it to them. Once again, thanks for tuning in. And as always, read the right thing.